Good morning, everyone. My name is Candice Sandovinuk. I'm the SIKU Outreach Programs Manager at the Arctic Ider Society. And I'm here with Jordan today, and we're going to be presenting to you about SIKU. So I'll get Jordan to quickly introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'm Jordan Hoffman. I'm the SIKU Natural History and Coordinator, and work a lot with researchers using SIKU.
Great. So I started sharing my screen. I believe we could get started on our presentation. Great. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be doing a super quick, 2-hour SIKU presentation with you today. We're going to get into a little bit of details on how you can make posts and all that, all the things that SIKU has to offer. So SIKU is known as the Indigenous Knowledge App, a platform where land users can share their observations and their harvests. And SIKU means sea ice in Inuktitut. So I'm just going to have this up on screen for a little bit. If you want the opportunity to quickly download SIKU, you can scan the QR code. Or you can go to the App Store if you have an iPhone, or you can go to Google Play Store if you have an Android device. And so we're just going to be quickly talk about the history of Arctic Ider Society and the history of SIKU kind of thing before we get into how you can make posts and everything. So you could follow along later on in the presentation on how to make some practice posts and stuff. And then we're just going to, before we start making practice posts, we're just going to quickly talk about settings and stuff so that we don't flood the SIKU feed with 50 new users with practice posts and stuff. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. So hopefully everyone had the opportunity to download SIKU. If not, you'll have another opportunity again in a bit here shortly. So for today's agenda, we're going to go over, like I said, the background of Arctic Ider Society, what SIKU is, how to use it, and we're going to talk about privacy, maps, and we're going to make some practice posts with you. So we're going to start by going over where SIKU came from and a little bit about the Arctic Ider Society. So SIKU was created by the Arctic Ider Society. We are a registered charity based in Sanikiluaq, Nunavut. Arctic Ider Society officially became a registered organization in 2011. But our team was working in the Bay, as in Hudson's Bay, James Bay, for decades before that. And you may remember the book Voices from the Bay or the film People of a Feather. The Arctic Ider Society grew out of initiatives like this that were advocating for Indigenous self-determination and environmental stewardship. So Peter Kaduk, shown here, was a big inspiration behind SIKU. He had said that it's time for the harpoon and the computer to work together, meaning it was time for Indigenous knowledge and technology to work together to benefit communities. And he saw that his knowledge was not being taken seriously by some researchers, and that this was because his knowledge wasn't written down. And often research relies on what is written down. So Peter wanted a tool that would make it easy for harvesters to document what they know about the land, so that when they're sitting across the table from government, research, or industry, we can have the power of written down data on our side as well. So what started in Sanikiluaq expanded to other communities. We worked with hunters, land users, and regional governing boards to create SIKU. So the tools that are included in the app were chosen by harvesters in workshops, in the photos that you can see here in the slide. And new features are always being added. So if you have an idea, or if there's different research tools and stuff that you would like to see on SIKU, we can work with you with that. So we're going to quickly go over how SIKU is being used and what SIKU is. So it's a free mobile app and web platform that you can use to collect data. SIKU is a combination of many tools in one location. It's a GPS, and it has a way to access satellite imagery and ice conditions. And it can be used to share your observations on the land and participate in research and monitoring projects and so much more. So today we're just going to be talking about the mobile device, and we won't get into the web version. But if you're ever interested and you want to learn more about the web version for your projects and everything else, please get in contact with us and we could work with you on that. So SIKU is for land users. It supports navigation. It's a GPS. We have maps and bathymetry, indigenous place names, and satellite imagery and weather services. So it's a place where you could find and use terms for wildlife, ice, and indigenous place names on the land in multiple indigenous languages and dialects. And it's a way to warn others in your community about dangerous ice conditions. And it's a tool for keeping track of your harvests, including where you went and what you see along the way. This can include signs of wildlife like nests, tracks, harvesting stories, egg and berry picking, and like so much more. And we're going to get into all the cool features that you can get into. And most importantly, though, SIKU is designed to be a safe space for sharing Indigenous knowledge and hunting stories. So there's a lot of examples that you probably remember from harvesters or hunters having harassment on other social media platforms like Facebook every time they made a hunting post. And I'm not sure if you remember that story from years ago about that youth that was being bullied for participating in a bowhead whale hunt. And often sealskin products are taken down when you post them for sale or any other time that you post sealskin products. So we wanted to make SIKU a safe space to share these stories. And it's because like other social media platforms like Facebook, their rules are not meant for Indigenous communities, but SIKU's rules are, so it's a safe space. So usually when you sign up for anything, you have like the terms and conditions, you just like quickly scroll through and you're like, I agree, good to go, like you never read them. I do that, so I'm not sure if you guys do that, but SIKU, our terms and conditions are actually our guiding principles, and we're going to get into them very quickly. So in building SIKU to be designed for Indigenous communities, there are principles, and the principles are built right into the core of SIKU and are agreed by all SIKU users when you create an account. So the first one is that Indigenous rights are respected on SIKU. As a social media platform putting Indigenous rights first, SIKU is a safe space for sharing and mobilizing Indigenous data. And two, that it's a tool to support self-determination. So SIKU helps document the data that has always formed the basis of Indigenous knowledge and mobilize it for use in community-based monitoring, guardian programs, and support self-determination research, education, and environmental stewardship. And three, that users own all their own posts and choose what happens with their posts. So just because you can see some of the posts on SIKU doesn't mean that you can use it. And intellectual property ownership is maintained through an informed data stewardship framework, which can be adjusted anytime by you. And we're going to explore this a little bit later on. And the last is that integrity. So there's no fake news, there's no AI images, no AI users. All users and posts are real on SIKU. So these guiding principles are what make SIKU a safe space for sharing Indigenous knowledge, or any kind of knowledge, and is one of the biggest differences between SIKU and other apps that you might see, like Facebook, for example. And you know that, yeah, sorry. So we're going to the next slide. So we uphold Indigenous data sovereignty, a big thing that we emphasize. So all data is stored on Canadian servers, and we have on-site backups. And you could download your data at any time you would like. We have many different formats that you could download your data from. Again, we'll get into that a little bit later. And SIKU never owns or shares user data, and we can't use it without your permission. So even if we, for example, wanted to take a screenshot of one of your posts or something and share it in one of our presentations to kind of show what data and stuff would look like, we'd have to ask you first if we could use that data. So it's very protected that way. So you have control over all your data. SIKU is not an open source data platform. No one can use your data without your permission. Again, because someone can see it doesn't mean that they can use it. You own your data and choose how you want to share it. And your posts cannot be used without your permission. And we have different options to manage your data. So this can kind of look like, for post privacy, you have 3 different options of how you want people to view your posts. So you could have it so that everyone who has SIKU can see your post. You can have it so just project members can see your post, or you can keep it private so no one else will see your post but you. And for post location, you can share the location. With SIKU, it uses the GPS in your phone to get like a precise location when you're out. So you can share the exact coordinates if you'd like. You have the option to mask the location, or you can kind of like do a radius, or you can hide your location completely. So these options that we have, you can do on a post by post basis, or you can keep it in your default settings. And lastly, SIKU projects are community-led or co-led with researchers. All research licensing and permits must be in place for SIKU projects, and ethical guidelines and Indigenous governance structures must be followed. And SIKU, users can give informed consent for data stewardship on a post-by-post basis. So we're going to get into SIKU for projects, and Jordan's going to be doing this part.
Thanks, Candice. Yeah, I'm just going to briefly go over some of our existing research projects on SIKU and tools we currently have or in development to support research projects. So next slide. So SIKU currently has over 100 active projects across a range of disciplines that are either entirely Indigenous-led or co-led between government, academic institutions, industry, and Indigenous communities. Projects focus on a range of research topics, including ecology, oceanography, ice safety, environmental hazards and impacts, hydrography, including community bathymetry mapping. There's community-based fisheries exploration, geology, social sciences, and multidisciplinary projects. And the next slide. And yeah, as Candice mentioned, the main framework for data stewardship for SIKU users is through tagging projects. Data stewardship through tagging projects can be done on a post-by-post basis, as Candice mentioned, so that SIKU users have complete control over how their data and knowledge is being used. And we'll go over some of that assigning stewardship shortly when we go through a tour and basic use of SIKU. And next slide. So with SIKU, you can engage and manage your team. So you can use the SIKU project management features, which are on the web version, which Candice mentioned. So you can track things like incentives, if you're paying community members honoraria, the project progress, you can manage your team and more. So our development team is working to integrate direct messaging as well, so you can keep in touch with project members and help support them in your project. And next slide. So just getting into a bit of more kind of some of the research tools. So this is a map view of oceanographic monitoring with the East Hudson Bay, James Bay Community-Driven Research Network, which is one of the first projects that was on SIKU. So monitoring can document on SIKU for community oversight. So it's kind of removing that black box around like what type of research and where research is happening around communities. So it's a way for researchers to share that information with communities kind of in near real time rather than sending a report months later about what they did. So it could basically show research and monitoring done to date and how it's supporting community priorities. So in this project, monitoring is being conducted for cumulative impacts of a large-scale hydro project and climate change in Sanikiluaq and across the community-driven research network. So the graph on the left is from the middle of the ice bridge between Sanikiluaq and Kutuarapik, showing a 20-meter deep layer of freshwater plume from James Bay outflow in winter that supported Inuit knowledge indicators of the same thing occurring through observations of the land and wildlife. So SIKU was developed as a tool at first to facilitate collaboration and knowledge sharing across the 5 communities in the community-driven research network, and to ensure that communities were aware of activities in basically near real time, and that communities had full access, ownership, and control of the data that was being collected. It was later scaled up as SIKU to be available more generally as a tool for other communities and regions that were interested to use it as well. And next slide. So maybe of some interest to some folks here, we have a ship observation tool for communities to document vessel information, behavior, and concerns for environmental and emergency response and situational awareness. Next. More on the ecology side, we have surveys that can be conducted using SIKU to assess population structure and abundance. We have time lapse and camera traps for example, walrus and polar bear and ice conditions. We have nesting surveys for eiders, geese, terns, and seabirds to assess demographic rates for productivity, timing of nesting, hatching, and fledgling. We've also implemented drop camera and underwater remotely operated vehicle surveys to assess benthic invertebrates to support community-led fisheries exploration and management. And next slide, please. I think just the next slide. Thanks. Yeah, and we're currently working on the integration of some machine learning and computer vision, artificial intelligence microservices for species detection, identification, and enumeration of wildlife. So first, we're focusing on Arctic char, eider ducks, and benthic invertebrates, which are important tools for our project for Kikte, which I'll talk about briefly in a moment. And next slide. And so these species detection, identification, and enumeration models will also be expanded for additional species of interest for aerial surveys. So I think one of the first ones we'll work on will be for caribou. And next slide. And this is a good visual of what trip tracks can look like. We'll talk a bit about trips in a few moments as well. Showing the range from boats, snowmobiles, and ATV, and visualizing data like this is a good example of land use occupancy. So in addition to machine learning models for wildlife, we're also planning to integrate models for trip travel method identification to better assess land use. So if someone goes out on a trip, currently they can select their method of transportation, but say if they forget, we'll use machine learning tools to assign a method of transportation based on how, like, where they're traveling and how fast they're traveling, et cetera, to assign that to better understand land use. And next slide. So with our project management features, you can visualize your data, filter data through our data dashboard or through the map, and get data analytics for quick reporting or to better understand your project's data. So you can do it all within SIKU. And we're expanding a lot of these features in the near future, hopefully going into kind of the early summer. And next slide. So next, I'll go over examples of community-led projects using SIKU. So next slide. So projects on SIKU can result in real-time, high-quality data that is grounded in Indigenous knowledge. And to show you the kinds of results from projects, I'll share some of the data from the Kikte project. So this is kind of the main project that's based in Sanikiluaq that the Arctic Eider Society is working on. So next slide. So using SIKU as a tool has allowed for powerful data sets for Indigenous communities to use for their own benefit. So this is just a very small area. And if you see at kind of the top middle of the map, you can see Sanikiluaq, where it's located in the Belcher Islands. So just a very small area showing the collection of knowledge and information on wildlife, sea ice, oceanographic monitoring, fisheries, and other information for the Kikte Protected Area Establishment Project. That's one of our biggest projects on SIKU. So next slide. So using this data, you can look at specific species. So for example, this is the timing of berry harvests over each year. Looking at different times berries are harvested in different years can indicate different weather conditions. So for example, looking at 2020 versus 2021, you can actually see the timing of the peak harvest of berries, and that can give you information on like long-term climate. So looking at if it was like a dry year or a wet year, all in kind of this fine spatial scale. And next slide, please. And gathering data on SIKU can also support the importance of the Inuit seasonal calendar. So this is an example of the seasonal calendar that was collected from the Voices from the Bay project in the 1990s as a result of interviews with knowledge holders and elders in Sanikiluaq. And this is what Candice mentioned earlier in the presentation. So you can see the timing of the availability of different species and species groups, all using Indigenous knowledge. And next slide. And here in this graph, you can see data overlaid on that calendar, confirming the observations and adding even more weight to the Indigenous knowledge gathered in this report from the 1990s and filling in gaps, showing how the calendar has changed since the 1990s. So this is actually all data that was collected by Sanikiluaq folks, and all using SIKU. So all the circles, you can see kind of the abundance of harvest of different species throughout the year. And this is data from, I believe it was 2021, 2022. And we've actually updated this as well, so you can see that change over time using SIKU as well as Indigenous knowledge. And something we're hoping to integrate directly into our visualizations as well, so that any community could make a similar visualization. And next slide. And on the largest scale, SIKU has challenges running that span the entire Arctic. So the Goose Watch, for example, helps harvesters track goose migration across the north and the timing of key life stages such as nesting and when animals are migrating as well. Additionally, Ice Watch tracks the timing of freeze up and thaw and observations of ice using Indigenous knowledge, classification systems, and language for sea ice. So these two challenges are run by the Arctic Hydro Society and demonstrate the power of Indigenous communities working together to track climate indicators long term. So currently we have our Ice Watch challenge running. It'll start pretty soon, but lots of folks making ice posts. I think we have at least a few hundred ice posts so far this season, and generally over 1,000 posts that we'll get across the Arctic every year. And I'll pass it back to Candice.
Thank you, Jordan. So we're going to get into a little bit of getting started on SIKU. So one more opportunity if you wanted to download SIKU and if you wanted to follow along. So I'll leave this up here for a couple seconds here. Again, you could download it from the App Store. You can scan the QR code, or you can go to the Play Store. So we're going to get into how to create your account, default settings, privacy settings, and then we'll start getting into a bit more practice posts and stuff. So it'll be really easy to follow along if you wanted to follow along. And if I'm talking a little bit too fast, please let me know. Or if I'm moving at a faster pace while you're following along, please let me know. And then I could slow down so that we could do the download and creation of accounts and stuff together. So once you have SIKU downloaded, it's going to prompt you to create an account. Again, SIKU is free. Anyone can use it. So you're going to click on create your account. You're going to put in your email address, create a password, and you must agree to those terms and conditions that we talked about near the beginning. And then it's going to ask you to tag your community and tag your organization. You don't have to tag an organization if you don't want to. You can just create. Your organization might not be created. So that's something that we can get into later if you wanted to create an organization. But if you could please tag your community, that's how you'll be able to access all the weather services and stuff that we have on SIKU, because it goes through your tagged community. If your community is not on there, please let us know. There's a bunch of communities and stuff that we still need to add. So again, if your community's not there, please let us know. And then we'll work with you to get that on there. So once you have all the account creation portion completed, the next portion is going to be, we're going to further customize SIKU for you. So your settings can be found once you get into SIKU. It's going to be to the top right image, which is your profile picture. And there you'll be able to find the places to edit your profile, change your default settings in your language, check for updates, and so much more. And again, SIKU is designed to be user-friendly so that you could be able to figure a lot of stuff out pretty easily. But I'm glad that we get to spend this time with you to have this workshop to get into more of the details and stuff. So a big thing is to make sure that your SIKU app is the most up-to-date version. We have quite a bit of updates rolling through regularly. We're going to have a big update coming up in the future. So the SIKU team's always working on new features and stuff, or like working on fixing bugs and everything. So if your apps aren't designed to update automatically, please regularly click on your profile picture on the top right, scroll down, and then check for updates. It's going to take you to the App Store or Google Play Store. And if it says open app, that means it's updated. Or if it says update version number. So if you see open app, that's how you know when you have the most up-to-date version. And if you have any bugs or anything, or if you have any issues, always make sure you have the most updated app. And if it's not updated, contact the help and the help chat, and then we can help you with some stuff. So the next one is how to change your language settings. So again, you go to the top right corner, and to change your app language, we'll change the language for the use of buttons and the text on the app. So there's 3 different language options there. So again, the app language is the language that you'll see on like all our buttons and all our features and stuff. So if you want to change it to French, for example, you can change it to French. So when you select a dialect, it will change to the language of like the ice and wildlife terms in the app. So for me, for example, I have it as South Qikqtarjuq, which is the South Baffin dialect. And then your additional dialect would be if the wildlife and ice terminology is not available in your first dialect, it'll show up in this additional dialect kind of thing. So for me, I have it set as English. So if it's not showing up in my Baffin dialect, then it'll show up in English. And then I'm not sure if you, but the option of syllabics is also on there. So I read Inuktitut best in syllabics, and that's how I grew up, was reading in syllabics instead of like Roman orthography. So that option is there also. But you can customize your app language in any way. It's pretty cool. Again, if your language and or dialect is not on there, please get in contact with us and we'll work with you to get that added on there. So we're going to go through a super quick tour of SIKU. Along the bottom, you're going to see 5 options. You're going to see home, map, my posts, weather, and explore. So we're going to get into each of them a little bit. So the home button, as soon as you open SIKU, it's automatically going to go to the home page, I guess. So this is the part of the app that looks very similar to other social media platforms that you might see. This is where you can see people's posts that other SIKU users have shared. So you can take some time to scroll through the feed to see what people are sharing. You can like and comment on some posts if you'd like. And to see more details about the post, you can tap on the blue arrow button near the top of that post. And if you click on the post for more details, but want to return to the home screen, you can tap the back arrow on the top left of your screen. So later we're going to get into how you decide how you want your post to be shared on the feed. So that's how you can see other people's posts and stuff. And it's actually pretty cool to scroll sometimes. Usually in the spring, you'll see a lot more like geese posts because the geese are coming back. Or you'll see a lot more fishing posts. In the winter, you'll see more ice posts and stuff. It's pretty cool to see from like the wide range of users that we have on SIKU. Like Jordan was saying, we have like 41,000 users ranging from like Alaska to Greenland and then like high Arctic to like, and we're expanding more south now, and it's pretty cool. So if you ever get bored, you can scroll through SIKU and see what people are posting. And if you click on the map button, At the bottom of the app, it will show you where you're located on the map. And you can see Indigenous place names on many parts of the map, which have been provided by many different Indigenous organizations. You can tap on those names to see a bit more information about them, about those place names. More place names are coming soon to the app. We're working with organizations to add more place names all the time. So if you're in a location and you're like, oh, I want my place names to be on there, but they're not, please let us know. We'll work with you to get them added. It's actually it's a kind of a quick process as long as we have all that data to get things added for you. And there's a lot of very useful map features on SIKU, which we're going to learn more about in a bit here. So if you go to My Posts, which is in the center, you can see where all your posts are made on SIKU, and you can also upload your posts to the homepage. So we're going to get into that a little bit more once we get into like practice posts and stuff, but every time you create a post, it doesn't get posted automatically, and it's going to go into the My Post portion, and then you can upload them from there, or you can edit it and stuff, and you can see like your activity panel at the top, and you can like see all the posts that you have made, which is pretty cool. Again, we'll get into that in a little bit. So for weather, that's where you could see the weather in your community. Again, that's why it was important for you in your default settings to tag your community on there so that you can access the weather. And if you don't have a community set, it might say like no weather, or you could at the top you see where it says like Chesapeake, and if you click on like the blue arrow going down, then you'll be able to look at weather in other places. But the weather will upload in your community, and again, you could check it in other communities if you like. So there's an option of seeing hourly weather, daily weather. There's marine forecasts, Indigenous terminology for weather, and in wind information, like all in one spot. We also have like Northern Lights forecast. I'm not sure if you see Northern Lights where you're from. I don't in Ottawa, unfortunately. And a whole bunch of other cool weather services that are available. And finally, we're going to talk about the Explore menu. You can see, you could use this menu to see different post types of posts that are being made. So you can choose to see all the posts about a particular wildlife species or ice type. So the interesting thing about SIKU is, I'm just going to use Facebook as an example because I feel like a lot of people know about Facebook. So in Facebook, you have like people have their own accounts, kind of thing. But with SIKU, each wildlife species, each ice type, and each weather have their own profiles, kind of thing. So if someone made a seal post and they tagged the seal in their post, it's going to also go into that seal post. So you can see all the posts on seals. Again, depending on your settings, if you want to share with everyone. So you can actually go into each wildlife species because each of them have their own profile, which is kind of cool. So if you're only interested in like Arctic terns, for example, you can see all the posts on Arctic terns. Or if you want to learn more about like lemmings or caribou or anything, you can check through that those feeds, which is pretty cool. You can also look at posts that are made or people who are tagging or were tagged in by tapping my profile. So at the top of the screen, or look at posts from your community by tapping my community. So again, if you want to see people who tagged you and stuff, you can go to my profile, which is at the top, or my community, and see all the people who are making the posts in your community. So next, we're going to quickly talk about stewardship and privacy. These control how you want your post to be shown on SIKU. For anyone wanting to try SIKU today, we're going to change the privacy settings for these test posts, so they won't like flood the feed with practice posts, kind of thing. And then you could change it if once you actually go out and you make real posts and stuff. We could do that, but for the purpose of this workshop, we're going to ask that you set them to private, and we can get into that in a sec here. So we're going to go over on how to change location privacy and your privacy settings. So when you make a SIKU post, the two main places that it's going to show up are on the home and on the map. And it's up to you how you want these to show up. So home is on both mobile and the um, web version, and then it could actually show up on the map that you could see on the web version. So for our practice post today, if you wouldn't mind changing your settings just for the purposes of this mini workshop. First, you're going to have to go to your settings, which is shown by clicking on your profile, photo at the top right. And then if you could go to default post privacy, again, just for the purposes of this workshop. And then you could, after this workshop, you can go back and change it so that you could like change your default settings if you'd like. But if you could go to privacy, which is at the bottom, and if you could click on private. Again, just for the purposes of this workshop, if you wanted to follow along and make some practice posts. And then after this meeting workshop, then you can go back to your default post settings, and then you could change that to like all SIKU users, or if you guys create a project, you can do just project members and stuff. And if you want more details, we can get into that a little bit later. So again, we're going to do step by step. So top right corner, click on your profile, go to default post tags. And so this is where you're going to see where it says show location. So if you can click on that and go to, actually that one you could do however you want that one to be for the location. Again, you could do show location, hide it, or approximate location. For that's for your location. And for post privacy, again, if you don't mind for just this mini workshop, if you can go to keep it as private. Again, just for this one, and then you can go back and change it afterwards. So again, this is how it's going to impact how people see your posts on on SIKU. So if you want to start using SIKU after this workshop, and then you want all SIKU users to see it, so it'll show up on all the feeds and stuff, you can go to all SIKU users. And then again, if you guys create a project, and if you only want project members, people within your project to see your posts, you can click on project members only. So if people aren't added to your project, and if you're not tagging that project in your posts, those posts won't show up there. And then we'll get into that part again a little bit. Is there any, I think we're going to save all questions at the end. Again, I talk a little bit fast when I'm excited, so hopefully it's all making sense right now. Again, so this is how it's going to look for post privacy and location visibility on the feed. So the first, it's going to show privacy, and you can see each post, you'll see the user. So in this example, we have Billy, and then you can see two little icons that it's being highlighted. So you'll be able to see at a glance what each of these icons mean, and how that information is being shared. So for Billy's ones, you'll see the two little people next to each other. So that means that all SIKU users can see that post. But if it was just a person with like a briefcase, that would mean project members only can see that post. And if you have like the lock, it means that your posts won't show up on the feed because you're keeping it private. And then for the location, you'll have like the little location icon with the check mark. That means that precise location is being shown on that post. And if you have that little post with the question mark, that means it's approximate location, or they're masking that location. And then if you have the location with like the little line through it, that means that they don't want to share where that location was hidden. So at a glance, you'll be able to see, looking through the feed, all that details. And again, you could do that on a post by post basis, or you could set it in your default settings.
Candice, I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second. We're having a question in the chat. I think it's possible by seeing the example on this slide, but is it possible to tag two communities if we work with both of them?
I believe so. Jordan?
So you can only, so often like for a contributor or a project, you can tag multiple projects. For communities, you can only tag one, and that might have to do a bit with our database structure. But if you are running a project, like say you create a project that you're doing research with a community, you can associate multiple communities to that project. So it would show up in the community feed that way. But yeah, you can only tag one community per post.
Okay, thank you for the question, and thank you, Jordan. Hopefully that answers your question. And we can, if you want to learn more about projects, we're not going to get into projects too much during this workshop, but if you want to learn more about projects and how all that works, please get in contact with us afterwards, and we can talk with you one-on-one kind of thing. Or if there's like other project members, we could talk with your team specifically about projects. So thank you for the question. So we're gonna move on. Unless there's any more questions at this time. I can't really see the screen because I have my speaking notes in front of me. So if you could just speak out like we just did, that would be great. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna get into how to make a post. So this is gonna be like quick, practical practice with SIKU. So which requires project members to make and share a full monitoring trip. So this is an example. We'll talk a bit more through of what that's going to look like. So we're gonna walk through different tools. So if you wanted to do, like if you want to record your trip and then document the observations while you're on the trip, so you can make observations about like wildlife or conditions, or if it's a hunting trip, you can document your harvests and save and upload your posts on the trips. So we're gonna get into very quickly about the different post types that we have. So for this purpose, we're going to be focusing on ice, snow, wildlife, trip, and research post types. But other types can be very useful as well. Like we're not going to be talking about weather or social posts at this time because we want to make sure that it's relevant for this quick 2-hour session that we have. So again, if you want to learn more, please get in contact with us and we'll be glad to talk to you more. So we're going to quickly try to make an ice and snow post together. So if you want to share ice conditions that you've seen, or maybe you see some hazardous ice that you want to warn community members about, this is the type of post that you want to make. So if you want to make a post, you're going to click on the post that says plus post on SIKU, and then you're going to click on ice and snow. And then so this is going to show up. You can add a photo or a video if you'd like. You could tap on it and you could do it directly from your phone, or you can import it from your gallery. So we could do that. And then if it's dangerous ice, you can click on, if it's dangerous ice, you can mark it as dangerous. So let's imagine that we're taking a picture of dangerous ice. So we're going to tap the dangerous ice button. And you notice how like a little warning is going to show up, and this symbol tells people that there is dangerous ice where you posted, and it'll show up more prominently on the map. So be careful not to post this test post as a dangerous ice post, because again, it's just a practice. But I just wanted to show you that there is the option of having dangerous ice posts and that it will show up more prominently. Next, you can tag the ice and tag ice and snow button. So we have many different ice types available on there, and by tagging, it's going to be showing people what kind of ice that you saw, and also it's going to add to the feed of the different ice types in the Explore menu. So if you're not sure of the type of ice that you have, you'll have like the ice, and I'll have like a little explanation of that. So you can take a while to scroll through, or if you know what you're looking for, you can click on the search. So if the ice type that you're looking for isn't there, again, you could type it into the ice and snow comment section below the tag button. So you will notice that there aren't too many ice and snow terms in all dialects right now, but as part of today's workshop, we are hoping that you could get them added onto SIKU if you wanted. So again, if your dialect or language is not fully on SIKU, and if you're like, oh, I know the term for this like ice type or this species, and it's not on SIKU, we can work with you to get that added. So now that you input all the information, click on the big yellow save button, and then it's going to automatically put it into your my post portion. So as soon as you click save, it's going to like kind of close, and then it's going to like bring you back to, I believe there's a home page or like a different page. And so for you to post it, you're going to have to go to My Posts, and then you're going to have to tap on the yellow cloud icon for it to be uploaded onto the SIKU feed. So SIKU is designed to be used when you are out on the land, where you might not have like full cell phone service or Wi-Fi. So you can make posts while you're on the land without internet connection. And again, it's going to use the GPS and stuff in your phone to get the precise locations and stuff. And then when you get back home to Wi-Fi and internet, you can upload it. So that's why it's kind of like that two-step thing. So if you try to practice posts, please go ahead and post it. Remember, you still own your own post after you upload it. People may be able to see it or not if you did the private part, but that doesn't mean that like anyone can use your post. So we've saved our post. Again, like I said, it won't automatically be uploaded onto SIKU. I kind of like jumped the gun a little bit here, but if you want to upload, you have to go to My Post tab. It's going to be in the pending section that you'll see. And you can actually make some edits and stuff first if you wanted to. So if you wanted to edit your post, like, oh, I forgot to add like a specific detail or something, you could click on it, tap the edit button, and it's going to bring it up so you can like make the edits and stuff, or if you want to add more comments, or if you're doing like a research post, and then if you want to add like the results and stuff afterwards, you could also edit even after it was posted and stuff. But Jordan's going to get into that in a bit, research post specifically. So when you're done making edits, again, click on the save button, tap on the cloud, upload it. It's good to go. So it's pretty easy to make a post. And so if you followed along and did a quick practice post, it's done. Yay, you did your first post. And if you did the all SIKU users can see, you can go on the feed and you'll be able to see it. If you did it on your private post, you'll be able to see it in your profile. And then you'll be able to see that post in your activity section. So when you go back to My Posts, it's going to automatically generate everything into your activity in your post tab. So it'll keep track of all the different types of posts and stuff that you have made. So we're going to quickly do a wildlife post now. So each wildlife post is going to start the same. You click on the plus post button, and this time you're going to click on wildlife, and then it's going to have the option of doing a harvest or an observation. And then once you click on harvest or observation, then you're going to choose the wildlife type that you're either observing or that you're harvesting. So then you can choose, so you could either like scroll, or you can go into the top and like search. You can see we have like the birds, mammals, fish, invertebrates, and plants. But if you're like, oh, I don't want to scroll through mammals to find like caribou, you can go to the top and write like caribou, and then it'll show up. So for this example, we're going to choose seal. So if you see seal, then you have to go individual or group. And then you'll be able to input all different types of information. And there's a difference between the observation and the harvest post because it's going to ask for different information. So with a observation, it's not going to ask for things like method of harvest or stomach contents or like all that kind of details. It's going to be specific for a wildlife harvest and all that kind of stuff. So each of them have a little bit of different information on there. So we're going to try, if you'd like, a couple different wildlife posts. So we're going to start with a fishing post. So tap on plus post, wildlife, tap on harvest, and then if you want to find lake trout on there, and then you could choose group. So if you're going fishing and then you get like 3 fish, you'd be like, I got a group of 3 fish. So there's more information that can be added, but for fish, the important parts are to take a picture of the full group. So if you have, again, your 3 fish, you can take a picture of them and mark how many there are and show how they were harvested. So for capture method, it could be like you were jigging or you set nets or like whatever your harvest method was. You have the option of putting the stomach contents on there for more details if you'd like. You can take body measurements. You could talk about like the habitat and surroundings, and then you could talk about if the fish was healthy, like a whole bunch of information that you could put in there, so you can like scroll through them and like play with that a little bit. There's a lot of cool information you could put. And again, click on the save button, and then your post will be saved. So that was the example of our fish harvest group. And then the next one that we have is berries. So again, you would go to wildlife, you go to harvest because you're harvesting berries. And then you can find upbeak, which is a cloudberry, and you can choose group. So for berries, take a photo of the berries, either in your container or in Ziploc bag or whatever, however you're containing your berries, and take a photo of the surroundings. So if, I'm not sure about you, but when I go berry picking back home, because I'm from Nunavut, I don't really like to share my berry picking spot with other people. Like, because if too many people know about it, then they're all go to your berry picking spot and you have no berries. So I personally would keep that location as no location, but that's just for me anyways. But you have like, again, those options on a post by post basis here in default settings. But whenever I post a berry picking post, I'm like, no, I'm keeping that private. Like no one's gonna know where my berries are. Again, put in all the information that you would like. And then you click on the big save button, and then that's a berry post. And then if you wanted to do like a beaver dam, for example, because you do have the options of like a nest or den, wildlife tracks if you're doing an observation, and other different types of wildlife sightings. So we're gonna try a beaver dam. So you're gonna click on wildlife observation, and then you're gonna find beaver, and then you're gonna click on nest and den instead of like tracks or observation stuff. And you can add a photo. You can select the condition. So like, does it look like it's active? Is it inactive? Is it broken? Like whatever details that you wanted to put, and describe what you saw. So if it was a nest, a bird nest, for example, you could put in like, there's 5 nests in the area and there's like 3 eggs in each nest kind of thing. So there's a whole bunch of details that you could put in there if you wanted to. You could explore all the different kinds of options that you have on SIKU. Which is really cool. So hopefully you were able to make some practice posts and save them, and so they'll be in your post portion. But for this next part, Jordan will be talking about research posts, which you guys might find to be interesting. So I'm gonna pass on to Jordan.
Thanks, Candice. And I realize we've kind of been going over SIKU for about an hour. I have about 15 or 20 minutes of some information. Would it be helpful to have a 5-minute break for anyone? If you, maybe I saw a thumbs up, so maybe if that works. If I come back at 11:03 and I can go over research posts and maps.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Jordan et Candice. Simplement pour donner l'information en français, si certaines personnes n'ont pas suivi dans la traduction. Donc, on va prendre une petite pause de 5 minutes. On va revenir à 11h03. Pendant cette pause, je vais stopper l'enregistrement, puis on va reprendre par la suite. Merci.
And I'll just wait a moment for Candice to get back, because she'll change the slides.
Good to go?
Yeah, I'm happy to get started again if most folks are back. Yeah, so I'm just going to briefly go over some of the research posts, trip posts, as well as some of our map tools, and how it could be of interest to you. So yeah, I'll start with research posts. So if you can go to the next slide, great. So SIKU has a number of research tools, including CTD, so conductivity, temperature, depth sensors support, time-lapse cameras, ice cores, water monitoring, insect traps. I know Nunavik Sentinels is a big project that's used in Nunavik. Drones and geology posts. So on the right-hand side, you can see research posts integrate fields to add sampling information along with photos, habitat information, and the ability to add ice tags in using indigenous classifiers for ice. So here with the ice core sample, you could add like the full photo of the ice core, just the end. You could take like the length, sample number, site code, make comments. You could add information on different sections, recording, along the way of your ice core. And with every post, with wildlife, with ice, anything, you can always add habitat and surroundings. So you can take a photo, just of the landscape of where you're sampling. You can tag the ice and snow type. So maybe you're sampling right near the flow edge, so you want to tag that, as well as adding any of your post and location privacy settings on a post by post basis as well. Yeah, lots of research tools. Yeah, feel free to explore them and see what type of different information you can add. With some of the research tools, so for example, with CTDs, and we're hoping to add it for drones, I believe, as well, as you can, obviously you are out sampling, you're downloading, you're recording your data, and you're downloading it at a later time when you get back to the lab. We actually have features where you can, through the SIKU web app, you can add that data at a later date to your post as well. So, for example, with the CTD data, you might want to share that with your project members or with the community to say, hey, I'm seeing, a freshwater lens at this depth, and it might be of interest. So yeah, we support that with SIKU, as well as along with anything you record out in the field. So the next slide, please. So I'll briefly go over trip posts. Yeah, if you wanted to make kind of a practice trip post, yeah, it's definitely you're more than welcome to. You'll see if you're just in your office today, if you make one, it doesn't work as well as if you're out on the land. So SIKU is kind of built as a tool to be out on land. So there's I find when you make it under a roof, the GPS can get a little bit confused, and you'll see a zigzagging line. And the moment you go outside, you'll see it works great. You also may notice if you kind of are only moving a few meters, the map doesn't like it too much. But if you're kind of out on the land traveling over 100 meters, then it's works totally fine. So yeah, definitely a tool built to be on the land though. Next slide, please. So trip tracks or trip posts can help you keep track of where you go on the land. So when you're making a trip post, you can see your trail as you travel, and when you're done, you can share about your trip with others. So this type of post also connects all posts you made during the trip together. So excuse me, on my trip, I can make a wildlife post, I can make an ice core sample, I can use any type of SIKU post, and it will show up along my trip track. And I can make that directly within the trip post itself. Next slide. So for trips to work and with everything on SIKU, we actually suggest is that you have your location set to always on. So yeah, it's not going to track your location if you're in town and send you ads or anything like that. It's just to ensure that everything works properly. I'm sorry, my dog is whining a little bit, so sorry if you can hear that. So yeah, make sure that you have it set to always on. SIKU will prompt you to do this as well. So you'll get a pop-up if you don't have this set. And yeah, it's different for iPhone and Android, but if you're not aware of how to do that, it should be easy to Google to find out how to set that. So yeah, just
I'm
ensure
sorry,
that you have it.
Jordan. I'm just going to
Yeah.
interrupt you once again. We're having a question in the chat.
Oh, sure.
Is there accuracy options for GPS tracking to control the battery consumption?
Not that I'm aware of, but yeah, generally, like we have folks doing long trips, and it doesn't seem to be too bad on the battery, from what I've seen. But yeah, I think it would mostly just be you kind of have to have it always on in your phone settings, and it probably depends on your phone model for how much battery that's going to consume. But yeah, we have folks doing kind of like all day trips, and it doesn't seem to be too bad in terms of battery usage.
Can I just add a bit more to that, Jordan?
Sure.
Yeah, so while you're using SIKU and you make a trip post, you're able to lock your screen. So your SIKU app doesn't need to be open the whole time that you're doing trip posts. So you can lock your screen to like help save some of your battery and stuff like that. So there's options and stuff like that. So it doesn't always need to be open on your phone. So hopefully that would help with saving some of your battery.
Great. Thanks, Candice. And then next slide. So like with every post, to start a post, you would go to hit post on your bottom right, and then tap trip. Then next slide. So with as I kind of mentioned in that map near the very start of the presentation, you can choose your main travel method. So you can choose if you're traveling by Skidoo or boat or ATV, as well as adding planned trip activities. So maybe I'm going out to camp or to bird hunt. So I can choose those activities as well in case I want to track that. Then next slide. So you can use SIKU like a GPS as well. So the map will show your trail. And obviously you have to have kind of SIKU on, so that may be a bit more battery usage if you were to use it more as a GPS. But the blue dot will show you where you are, which direction you're heading, and then the red trail will show up behind you as you move. And this GPS works completely offline, so you don't need a Wi-Fi connection to use it. It's just internally within your phone. And to as Candice mentioned, to keep the trip running, you can put your phone to sleep. You can turn off the screen, but just make sure you don't completely exit the SIKU app, or it will close. So yeah, definitely to save a bit of battery, it's helpful to have it in your pocket and have the screen go to sleep. But just make sure you're not closing the app fully. And then next slide. So as I mentioned, as you travel, you can make other types of posts along the way. So you can make a social post, a wildlife post, a research post, and it'll just help track along your trip, and you can see that all on the map when you're done. And then next slide. So you can also see details about your trip. So going to the map page and slide to the trip panel up. You can see a record of what you've harvested, as well as any other posts you've made along the way. So when you're making that trip post, you just slide the screen up and you can see kind of all of those features. So you can get the information, harvest, different types of posts you've made, etc. And next slide, please. So you can also add details about the trip. So you can include photos, method of transportation, as I mentioned, and more information as well. So like it says here, you can, if you happen to have a breakdown, you might want to know that as a harvester to see where you've broken down in different areas and record extra information. And next slide. So once you've finished your trip, there's a big button that says finish trip, and then just make sure you hit finish trip. and then you finish and save, and then like every other post, next slide, you would just tap the cloud in your My Posts menu to upload that trip. So yeah, nothing will kind of like show up in the SIKU feed or anything. Or if you went to export that at some point, nothing would show up until you hit the cloud button to upload once you have Wi-Fi or a cell phone signal to be able to do that. And next slide. So now once you hit save and you've hit the cloud, your trip's complete. You can see it on the SIKU feed. You can use it for data analysis, anything you might need to do. Yeah. And next slide. So I'll just go over briefly the activity summary. So I think Candice kind of touched on this, so I'll just briefly go over it. Next slide. So you can see any post you've made, so whether it's a trip, a research post, a wildlife harvest, you can see all this on the My Posts. So if you My Posts on the very bottom of SIKU, that's where you can track everything. So if you're an individual harvester and you might not be part of any projects on SIKU, you can track all of your activity just for yourself. Or if you're part of a project and you want to see, how you've contributed to that project over time, the number of ice cores or CTDs you've helped a researcher with, you can see all of that in your My Posts as well. And those will all show up in the map, and you can favorite them or pin them so they'll show up. I think I see a question. So the question was, instead of the home button at the bottom left, you see a feed icon, but the app version was just downloaded, so I assume it is the latest version. Yeah, so are you on Android or iPhone? So I'm using iPhone. That may be an older version iPhone. Yeah, so I have the latest version, and mine is just home. So if you do see that, yeah, it's a bit odd that it says feed, but yeah, the feed should function. The home is the same as feed, so it should function the same. Yeah, I have the latest version, so I'm not entirely sure why it would say feed, but if you do, you can always check for, if you're go to your top right, your profile, there's a little where you have your photo. If you try check for update, and it could be a update issue. But yeah, let me know at the end, or you can feel free to get in touch with us over email if you keep having that issue. And I'll just go to the next slide. Yeah, so for the activity summary, you can tap more to see details about all of the posts you've made. Next slide. You can also tap our map icon for all posts, and you can see a record of all of your trips, all of your posts you've made directly on the map as well. And next slide. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about our mapping and GPS functions on SIKU. So these are heavily used by harvesters. So we actually find some users almost entirely use SIKU, like they won't make a post about wildlife or ice or weather or anything, but they'll use SIKU for its maps, for its like indigenous place names, for satellite imagery, and yeah, just entirely use it as a GPS and mapping function. So yeah, I think we have about 4,500 to 5,000 users in Greenland, and we find they heavily use the mapping features because you can actually download some of the map tiles for use offline. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to see different uses by different folks. Next slide. Yeah, so I'll to look at the map, you just go to the map icon at the bottom. And next slide. In the top right, you'll see a couple of controls. So tapping on the gear icon will show you your map settings. So you'll see you have the option to turn off and on a couple of things. So you can turn on and off traditional place names, the shoreline, community labels, and Ice Watch and Goose Watch posts. And next slide. And you'll also see an icon to change the different map layers, so you can access all these layers provided that you are connected to the internet. And next slide. So so all of the maps you'll need to initially access offline or online, sorry, using Wi-Fi or cell phone signal. But there's 2 maps that we have that are downloadable so that you can use them completely offline and you can download map tiles. So that's the base map and the mosaic map. And then online, you'll be able to access the radar imagery, Sentinel-2, Sentinel-3, MODIS, and Landsat. So the rest of the maps use satellite imagery that's regularly updated, meaning you can see things like recent ice conditions, but these maps need an internet connection to be available. Yeah, and for the offline maps, so it's the base map and the mosaic map only. They don't update regularly, so they can be downloadable on your phone for offline use when you're out on the land. So yeah, you can do this by, and if you go to next slide, please. You can do this by going to manage offline maps for either the base map or mosaic layers. And then you can choose different tiles to download. We currently support, you can download quite a large area with the tiles at the moment. We've improved that over time. And then you can select anything and update your offline map. So you do this when you have an internet connection, and then you can use that map when you're out on the land. Yeah, and at the moment, we just recommend downloading 1 tile at a time, just to help with our servers. And then next slide, please. So we support Sentinel-2 and 3. So we have data from the European Space Agency satellites. So Sentinel-2 obviously has a higher resolution and updates every 2 to 5 days. And Sentinel-3 has a slightly lower resolution, but we included it because it may have more up-to-date imagery than Sentinel-2, depending on when the satellites pass over. And next slide. So we have Landsat 8 and MODIS are similar to Sentinel-3. They're useful because sometimes they have more up-to-date images depending on when their satellites have passed by. And radar is helpful as it can see through clouds and other weather. So obviously when you have 24-hour darkness in places like Grise Fjord or Resolute Bay, we find a lot of users are using the radar imagery, but it does take a bit of knowledge to interpret it. And next slide, please. And finally, we have our custom SIKU ice map. So it's kind of a cutting edge mapping product that's we've created. So it combines radar imagery, Canadian ice service ice charts, as well as any SIKU ice posts that have been have their Ice Watch stewardship turned on, together to show things like where the flow edge is, how rough the ice is, and conditions that people have observed. So yeah, we find a lot of use for this. Going into the springtime, you'll see a lot of these features show up on the ice map, and yeah, it definitely helps with harvesters for traveling and planning. And next slide, please. And with most of our maps, other than Mosaic and Base Map, you can use the calendar tool to search for images from different dates. So you can even go years back to see how conditions were in the past. I found from a research perspective, the interesting use for this is that, if you have, for example, you're doing a seal harvest study and you have communities, tagging projects over a number of years. And obviously within SIKU, they can tag, where they've harvested that seal. They could take a photo of the habitat. They could tag the ice type. So they could say, I harvested this at an igloo, like a seal breathing hole, or I harvested this at the CNAC, like the flow edge. But if they happen to not tag it at the time or take a photo that would give you that information, you can actually go in. I usually do this through the SIKU web app, but you could go in and do kind of some data QC where I could find that post, locate it on the map, find that exact day or very close to that day, and see was that seal harvest at the flow edge or was it on the from a breathing hole, and you can actually use SIKU to do some data QC that way, which is an interesting use of some of our mapping tools. As well, you could, if it's of interest ever, you can, match up a ice post with, showing the exact location of a dangerous ice post, and maybe they've tagged Alurac, like a big spring tidal crack, and you can actually see that show up on the map as well, and it helps, demonstrate, how powerful those land-based observations are by harvesters. And yeah, any questions? Yeah, as kind of we've mentioned, if you're kind of interested in starting a project on SIKU and you really want to learn more about your specific project, so like say you're doing like Arctic char research on stomach contents and you're like linking it up with ice observations or anything like that, we can give you specific training to help you run that project, to show you all the features of those specific posts. We can also go over the SIKU web app and project management features, so seeing like how your data will show up, and how you can add project members from communities. If there ever was, like if you were working with a specific community too, like we're more than happy to offer training, for not only you, but for, the community you may be working with. So definitely, happy to expand on some of the features and kind of what we've shown you today in this shorter presentation. And yeah, I think maybe Candace would agree, but generally we recommend kind of like doing something on the land as well. Like, where, if you're working with communities, it's like going out and, making posts on the ice and like seeing how it all works practically, rather than kind of like, being in an office and not really seeing, how the features of SIKU work. But yeah, happy to offer any of that. Our main kind of generic contact is info@siku.org. You can hit the support button, sorry, on SIKU, so kind of the little talking cloud there. And then both of our emails are on the bottom of this slide too. So if you think of anything, or you want to talk more about your project and whether you think it's appropriate to be used on SIKU or anything, feel free to get in touch with us. But yeah, happy to answer any other questions.
So I just want to remember participants, if you don't feel at ease to ask questions in English, feel free to ask them in the chat in French and I can translate. Donc, si jamais qui que ce soit qui se sent pas à l'aise de poser des questions en anglais, vous pouvez les taper en français dans le chat et je pourrai les traduire pour vous. We're having a raised hand, so go ahead, Julia.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's a like very, very cool app and interesting approach. I'm wondering how I've seen that a lot of the projects that are posted on there are collaborations between communities and institutions or government. How do you navigate non-Inuit or non-Indigenous people participating in these research projects in terms of access to data and knowledge, and making sure to respect the terms of use?
Yeah, I could give it a go. So SIKU is not only meant for Indigenous people, non-Indigenous people can also use the app. And if you're working with communities, or if you have a research project, or if a community asks you to be part of their community-based monitoring research project or anything, that's when it's best if you would create a project on SIKU and then have those community members included in your project so that they agree to share that data with you. And then you can actually, if you wanted to create a project, we can work with you on exactly how to create the project, how to add members, how to make sure that those posts are stewarded into that project. And then we could do some project management training with you so we could teach you how to export the data from our dashboard so that you could use it for all your other analysis and stuff that you need. There's a few different ways that you can export the data, different formats and stuff. Jordan knows a little bit better about the exportation of the data and everything, but as long as you have community members agreeing to share that data with you, then they could share that data with you. Or if you're not a part of a project, you can reach out to an individual and be like, I love the work that you're doing. Is it okay if I use some of this data with you? And they have the option of sharing that data with you. So it could be like a one-on-one. And then you could work with them to share that data. Or if you wanted to do like a community thing, the best thing would be to create a project on SIKU.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
We're having a few. Did
I
we
was going
answer
to add.
your? Oh, go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, just very briefly. Part of, I guess, like, the benefit of like non-Inuit or non-Indigenous researchers posting on SIKU as well is part of what we're trying to do is kind of remove that black box around, what happens with research in communities while implementing the National Inuit Strategy on Research. So, I think it is like, obviously, like the best part of SIKU is when, institutions and communities can work together, or, communities can work on their own to run research and monitoring projects. We find that is like, it's so helpful to be able to kind of communicate that research and, what's kind of happening in near real time, even like the location of like where you're sampling or anything like that is, we find to be really important.
Amazing, thank you.
So we're having a few questions in the chat. First, a question from Isabelle Lorion. She would like to know if there are, like, for example, posts on Tongat Lake near Mitimatalik, and she's not sure how to look for them through the app.
I can answer that, Candice, if you want. So the easiest way, I wonder if I can share my screen. I'm just going to try to share my screen here. Can everyone see my SIKU open?
Yep.
Great. So the easiest way is to use when you're kind of like looking at information as a whole, I find the SIKU web app is a bit better to kind of like look at data and information that's on SIKU. So if you know where like Tugat Lake is, you can find it on the map. And then we have map filtering. So all of the place names, I'm not exactly sure where it is, but if you know where it is, you'll likely see the place name for it on the map. And what you can do is on the filtering, I can look for different posts that if I'm interested in Arctic char posts that have happened on that lake over time, I can use the map filtering feature to look, within a specific date range for a specific species. So maybe I'm only interested in Arctic char, and then I can filter out the map and see. Obviously, like the only posts that will show up is posts that people have set their privacy or location settings to allow the post to show up on the main SIKU feed and the main SIKU map. But that's just to kind of give you an idea of like what might be there already. You wouldn't be able to use any of that data without data stewardship. So you can see to get a general idea of if people are posting in that area, but you wouldn't be able to see it or to use the data in any way without kind of informed data stewardship.
Thank you. So we're having another question in the chat from Theo Fritz. He's saying the map is very hard or long to load on his computer. Is that normal? Is there anything he can do to improve that?
So yeah, depending on how much data you're looking at. So like if I wanted to fill my feed with every single SIKU post, it could be too much for our servers. There's like over 100,000 posts on SIKU, so it's a bit taxing. We are working on a new web app for probably like early summer, maybe like June, July, as well as improving our database structure. So we will be able to call up more information, but sometimes if your requests are a bit too heavy, you'll find it's a bit slow. But yeah, generally to pull up just basic things on the map, it shouldn't take too long, unless it's you're having issues with your internet connection or anything. And yes, I can answer the next question in the chat there, if that's helpful. So the question is there a manual or a guide to explain the possibilities of SIKU? And if not, is the presentation, will it be available as a PDF? And I believe this is being recorded and should be available. We also have, maybe I'll drop it in the chat, but through the SIKU web app, if you go to siku.org, at the bottom you'll see, and this is something we're currently working on as we speak. You can go to explore and you'll see about. So there's a nice kind of like very basic summary of like what SIKU is. We have like a video explaining it. That's just a bit easier to digest. If you go, I'll share my screen again here. So I think you should be able to see so this is if I went to SIKU, I went to the Explore menu, and I just scrolled down to About. So here there's just a very, a 4.5 minute video explaining what SIKU is. For researchers, we've created this page. So under use cases and project management, it'll tell you all about kind of the different features that will support research and monitoring projects on SIKU. So everything from our maps to customization to different tools, about Indigenous data sovereignty and how we're supporting that, visualizing data, et cetera. So that's currently what we have right now. If you wanted more in-depth information, we're always happy to provide some of that. But and this is something we're working on as well, as I mentioned, improving kind of our FAQ section and some just our about page as well to share more information on SIKU. In terms of, sorry, I can keep answering the questions I see in the chat here. So the question was, do you offer the same kind of presentation about creating and using the project features, or do you only offer one-on-one support? Yeah, just interested in hearing more. Yeah, like that's something we can definitely we don't want to keep you all day going over all the SIKU's features, so we figured we kind of like start off with just a a basic about what SIKU is and just some of the basic posting. But yeah, we're happy to whether it's like a small group or a large group to go over some of those project management features. Also happy to provide that one-on-one. So like if it's like I've provided presentations to like different labs and that kind of thing to go over features like that. Yeah, it's something we're also we're improving upon at the moment. So yeah, over the next 4 to 6 months, we have a bunch coming out with our project management features that I think will help out a lot. So definitely happy to provide yeah, more information on those features if you want to get in touch either with Candice or myself, or just general contact info at siku.org. We'll reach one of us as well, and we can provide that training.
Yeah, if I could also add to that. So specifically for like project management training stuff, we can do specific project management training with the project managers or the project leads. And then we could also talk about doing kind of like our basic SIKU training, kind of like what we did today, but a lot more in depth with like practice stuff with your project members. So if you're going to, let's say, for example, if you're going to work with the community, we can work with you and we could train your project members or people who will be your project members, and we can go through like the basic SIKU training stuff. And then we'd help support you throughout the life of your project if you have any questions or if you want to export data or all kinds of stuff. We do offer quite a bit of project support and stuff, so we could help train your members, and then we could train your admin team or your project leads on the project management side of stuff.
So do we have any more questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or type them in the chat.
Maybe while we're waiting, my screen glitched out for a bit, so I had to like leave and rejoin again. But Jordan, would you be able to talk about the different types of the formats that you can export the data from the SIKU dashboard? Because we do have different formats and stuff, and I know as researchers, you guys probably need your data in specific formats. So Jordan, would you be able to quickly talk about the options that we have?
Sure. I'll just share my screen again here. Yeah, so something again we're kind of working on with our database refactor is the types of export you can use for spatial data and for CSVs and that kind of thing. So when you have a project on SIKU, you can access different things like analytics, so you can get kind of some basic graphs, and we're working to improve that too to kind of get more information, so you can pull up something quickly for a report for communities. But you can also use this managed post features, which has our dashboard. So Kick Day is our biggest project. I think there must be 40,000 or 50,000 posts. So lots of data to support the work there. But yeah, currently we have like different formats like JSONs and POJSONs and KML exporting for spatial data. We have like CSVs. So you can pull up like for CSVs, we'll have cloud links for any photos or videos that are associated with projects. Currently, we have CSV packages where any photos taken, are downloaded along with the data. But yeah, you can get, this is not too much, but you'll have like every field for different posts you can go through, and through the dashboard too. You can, if you just want to get, like quick information, we've kind of like set it up where you could, if you're compensating project members with honoraria, for example, you can track if they're being paid. If you've reviewed posts, you can get all kinds of information about post date, types of posts, and you can easily, sort it to, see how many wildlife observations I might have, and what type. So, yeah, there's lots of ways to kind of like play with the data directly within SIKU. We've done this to, obviously like support where it's like fully community-led projects to be able to do everything within SIKU. Often researchers probably want to download it and use it in R, ArcGIS or QGIS or whatever it may be. But we have a lot of features to use data and support projects that way directly within SIKU. But happy to provide kind of more information on that to any groups that would be interested.
Thank you, Jordan. I also just quickly wanted to reiterate that during our presentation, we did talk a lot about like Inuit communities and stuff, but we have expanded more to include First Nation communities and Cree communities and other different types of communities on there. So if you're working more with First Nation communities or something, we do have some dialects and languages within First Nation communities. And because we're still expanding, we're still in the process of adding more place names, more languages and dialects and terminology and stuff. So it's not like SIKU was created with Inuit communities alongside with some Cree communities as well. And then other communities have expressed some interest and stuff. So we are expanding. We have users in Yukon, we have users in BC. We're expanding more to like Ontario and like Alberta, like we're expanding quite a bit. We just might not have all the place names, terminology and language yet, but we're still working on that, and we're also still working on adding like different types of trees and species that aren't only in Nunavut, like southern species and stuff like that. So if you do see some species or terminology or anything that's not added on SIKU, please let us know, and we could again work with you to get those added on to SIKU. Or if you had research posts, like if you're doing research with like a specific instrument that isn't on SIKU, again, please reach out and then we'll work with you on how that might look. We want to make sure that it includes everyone who wants to use SIKU with all the features and stuff that we have. We have a question?
Yeah, I have my hand up. It's Marlene Evans. I've been doing work with, two locations, one up at Cambridge Bay, mainly on lakes. Mila Rocho and Heidi Swanson are on that project. So is it possible to talk with you and then see how we could develop something with that community or the Kitimat region to do their community-based monitoring? And then I also am doing work on Great Slave Lake. So is it also possible that somehow or other I could connect with you and you could help us develop that?
Definitely. Yeah, you could send me an email and I can help you with that. We have done some workshops in Cambridge Bay.
Have
Jordan,
you?
yeah. Jordan will be doing a workshop in Cambridge Bay, I believe next month, and we do have some users in Cambridge Bay. So we could definitely work with you to either create the project or we could offer training with your project members. I think we do also have users in NWT. So again, that's something that we could definitely work with you on creating your project and then giving you admin kind of training and then also giving your users the SIKU training so that they could join your project and then steward their post and share their posts and stuff with your project and gather all that data.
So, sorry, I got a little bit. Could I be invited to that workshop at Cambridge Bay?
I'll leave that to Jordan because Jordan will be doing that.
Cambridge Bay workshop that Candice mentioned, I'm actually doing for high school students as part of a kind of like grade 10, 11 biology workshop at CHARS, the Arctic Research Station. But yeah, so it's a bit separate. We do have a couple of projects in Cambridge Bay currently. And there's folks using like maps and that kind of thing, so there's lots of users. But definitely if you want to discuss your project more, we're happy to talk to you and learn a bit more about what you're doing and how it could fit in with SIKU and the tools we currently offer.
Well, with our Northern Contaminant funding, they're very big on us providing capacity building and training, and it's quite difficult with the, just doing the fish sampling. So I'm looking for other means to do that. So um, I was thinking of trying to work to develop science fairs in the communities. They used to have them, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Canada-wide science fair, but I thought the high school students could develop some projects, and some of it could be based on either working with Mila who's doing limnological measurements, or else using iNaturalist and Merlin to go out and do like surveys on the land. But it seems what you're doing also could include some provision for students, formally developing a science fair project. And I know the schools would have an interest. So I'm going to, reach out to the Canada-wide Science Fair. They used to have a science fair in the Kittymail region, but somehow it got dropped during COVID. So it would be nice to see that resurrected. And it certainly sounds what you're doing would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds really great.
So you'll invite me to the workshop?
That one is just for students, so it's not like a kind of a big open workshop.
But they're kind of my target right now with training, with NCP wanting us to do capacity building. So I think the things that are most effective are to try and reach out to the schools and then get the kids interested in, pursuing advanced training, either through technical college or, a university. So that's kind of my target audience right now.
Yeah, if you want to send me an email, I can kind of let you know. But I'm kind of just a guest as part of that and not running it or anything. It's with Polar Knowledge and
Oh, okay. Like Polar Knowledge or CHARS.
well, yeah, Polar Knowledge is kind of running.
Okay. Well, I'll send you an email and
Yeah.
I'll copy Heidi and Mila on it also because we're all three of us are working together. And Mila's projects are broader than mine.
Great.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. That is great. I'll pass it on. I'll pass it back to Beatrice. Again, thank you so much for joining our workshop today. And please feel free to get in contact with us at any time for any questions that you might have, or if you're thinking of running a project on SIKU, we can work with you to get things set up and do some training.